Senate will come to order. Leading us in prayer today is the Reverend Yagana Yakuba of the Church of Hope here in Pierre. Following the prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the Senate page of the day, Hannah DeLine from Mitchell Christian High School.
Let's pray. Sweet Holy Spirit, we welcome you. We welcome your excellency here in this building, here in this room, here in our heart. We ask that, Lord, you, the giver of life, will continue to shield us. We pray for the Senate, each one that is here and those that are unable to be here, that, Lord, you continue to protect them, you guide them, give them wisdom, understanding, and discerning spirit, even as they carry out that authority and the responsibility given unto them. Above all, O God, we ask that they find refuge in you. We pray also that, Lord, you be with us as the people of South Dakota, that we will continue to worship you in spirit and in truth. Amen.
The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, Blunt, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, and Zickman. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Approval of the journal.
Mr. President, the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that the Secretary of the Senate has had under consideration the Senate Journal of the 27th day. All errors, typographical or otherwise, are duly marked in the temporary journal for correction, and we hereby move adoption of the report. Submitted, Chris Carr, Chair.
Is there a second? Approval of the journal has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. Members of the Senate, we're going to welcome our Doctor of the Day at this time. And hey, look, it's the same guy as yesterday, Dr. Noel Chicoine. Who knew? Let's welcome him back. You probably realize Dr. Chicoine fills in when there isn't another doctor available. So we do appreciate you. That's why he's here so often. Communications.
We have 5 letters from Governor Larry Roden addressed to the President and members of the Senate, asking the Senate to consider board and commission appointments, and reappointments. The letters will be printed in today's journal if you are interested in more detail on any of them. Those include appointment of Ross Cooney, Custer County, Buffalo Gap, South Dakota, to the State Brand Board. Appointment of Kevin Nyberg, Lincoln County, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to the Game Fish and Parks Commission. Reappointment of Galen Niederwerder, Meade County, New Underwood, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Ellsworth Development Authority. Reappointment of Quentin Riggins, Pennington County, Rapid City, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Ellsworth Development Authority. And appointment of Chuck Spring, Meade County, Union Center, to the Game Fish and Parks Commission.
President Pro Tem has made the following committee assignments of those appointments: to Commerce and Energy, Senate Commerce and Energy, Galen Niederwerder and Quentin Riggins, and to Ag and Natural Resources, Ross Cooney, Kevin Nyberg, and Chuck Spring.
Mr. President and members of the Senate, I have the honor to inform you that I have approved Senate Bills 63, 67, 68, and 117, and all have been deposited in the office of the Secretary of State. Submitted, Larry Roden, Governor.
Reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Joint Committee on Appropriations reports that it has had under consideration and returns recommendations on Senate Bills 130, 220, and 240 to do pass. Submitted, Mike Derby, Ernie Otten, co-chairs. Also, Mr. President, the Committee on Senate Health and Human Services reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the same with the following recommendations. House Bills 1099, 1162, and 1169 do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1105 was tabled. Submitted, Kevin Jensen, Chair. The Committee on Senate Taxation reports that it has had the following under consideration and returns the following recommendations. House Bill 1193 do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1241 was deferred to the 41st legislative day. Submitted, Sue Peterson, Chair. Also, Mr. President, the Committee on Senate Local Government reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the following recommendations. House Bill 1092 and 1106 do pass, and having been certified as uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. Submitted, Tim Reed, Chair. The Committee on Senate State Affairs reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the following recommendations. House Bill 1040 do pass. House Bill 1102 be amended and do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on consent. House Bill 1095 do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on consent. House Joint Resolution 5001 be amended and do pass. Submitted, Jim Melhoff, Chair. And finally, the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that the Office of Engrossing and Enrolling has carefully compared Senate Bills 25, 30, and 31 and finds all correctly enrolled. And the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that Senate Bills 20, 27, 55, 72, 75, 116, 129, and 165 were all delivered to His Excellency the Governor for his approval at 9 a.m. February 25th, 2026. Submitted, Chris Carr, Chair.
Messages from the House.
Mr. President, I have the honor to inform you that Senate Bill 205 was lost on second reading and final passage. I also inform you that Senate Bills 25, 30, and 31 all passed the House without change. Additionally, I have the honor to inform you that the House has concurred in amendments to House Bill 1062. And finally, I have the honor to transmit House Bills 1082, 1134, 1135, 1140, 1161, 1184, 1249, 1257, 1274, 1279, 1280, 1298, 1300, 1302, and 1303, which have all passed the House, and your consideration is requested. Submitted, Patricia Miller, Chief Clerk.
Members of the Senate, I'm going to ask you at this time to welcome in the gallery a former member of this body visiting us today, Senator Erin Tobin. Welcome her back. Senator Crabtree, looks like you have a personal privilege.
Yeah, personal privilege if I could. Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce my high school sweetheart, my girlfriend, and now wife, Ashley Crabtree. Ash, would you stand up? So she not only keeps everything on track at the house with 2 boys that are in about every sport and everything possible, but she runs her own business as a successful optometrist and eye doctor. And we know how important those eye doctors are. So I thought I'd have her come in here to make sure nobody needed to go anywhere else. They could stay here and vote today. It was going to be awesome. So appreciate the optometrist joining us today.
Welcome.
I also have one more, Mr. President, and that is my mom and dad. So Ken and Ken and Cinda, who have literally...
Blanking on the name there for a minute?
Yeah, I couldn't remember. And there was, one of these kids was cutting onions, I think. But people who have really taught me public service, but also never missed a single game through a lot of years of watching all of us, and still watch us in action, my sister and I. So welcome to the Senate.
Welcome. Senator Voida.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
I would ask the body to please help me welcome the Platte Geddes Senior Government class who is here with their teacher, Andy Van Essen. The kids, if you could stand, please, and then he's behind us.
Senator Sauter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, the good senator from District 22 and I are very fortunate to have the Clark High School kids here today up in the gallery, and welcome to where we work. Thank you very much, and let's give them a warm welcome, please.
Welcome. Motions and resolutions.
Senator Melhoff moves that when we adjourn today, we adjourn to convene at 1 p.m. on Thursday, February 26th, the 29th legislative day.
That has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. That carries.
Senator Melhoff moves that House Bill 1107 be deferred to Thursday, February 26th, the 29th legislative day.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. No. Carries. The ayes got to perk up a little here. Consideration of committee reports.
Senator Melhoff moves that the reports of the Standing Committee on Commerce and Energy on House Bill 1194 and the Committee on Ag and Natural Resources on House Bill 1265 be adopted.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. Consideration of executive appointments.
Consideration of the executive appointment of Tanya Warzeka of Union County, Jefferson, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Board of Education Standards.
Question before the Senate is the consideration of the executive appointment of Tonya Warzeka of Union County, Jefferson, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Board of Education Standards. Are there any remarks? Senator Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am pleased to bring forth this executive appointment for Dr. Warzeka. Got to know her really well as she was the Dakota Valley Superintendent starting in 2021. But long before that, she started her career in education as a elementary school teacher, and then ascended into principalship and other leadership as she her talents for leadership and student excellence were recognized by all those around her. Notably, her leadership in the Dakota Valley School District was just immense. She came in, started, updated the crisis plan, and also led the school district through the 2024 flood that devastated the McCook Lake area, surrounded the school district, and led students and faculty and families through a really, really challenging time in our area. And so we were sad to see her accept a superintendent position in the T School District, but we know how lucky they are because we are aware of how great she is. And so please join me in voting yes to this outstanding individual.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is, does the Senate advise and consent to the executive appointment of Tonya Warzeka, Union County, Jefferson, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Board of Education Standards? When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Pulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman. Mr. President, we have 33 yeas, 2 excused.
So the question, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the appointment confirmed.
Consideration of the executive appointment of Gregory Von Wald of Pennington County, Rapid City, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Board of Education Standards.
Question before the Senate is the executive appointment of Gregory Von Wald of Pennington County, Rapid City, South Dakota, to the Board of Education Standards. Are there any remarks? Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. The governor's nomination of Gregory Von Wald to the South Dakota Board of Education Standards is really great, and the person that actually gave him the first okay was Joe Graves, who's the Secretary of Education. And I've known Greg Von Wald in the past. We were both in leadership with Almond Collection Service in the 90s. We had over 400 or 500 people working for us at the time. He also ran a company called TelServe in Aberdeen, so he has some of its roots there. But the fact is, Mitchell Technical College really got him as the guy. He oversaw the construction of the new Mitchell Tech campus off of I-90, established working partnerships with industry in which he supported the creation of the Foley and new programs and the renovation of existing programs to meet industry needs. He increased the student population by 120%, and he ran Amendment R, the campaign that resulted in the establishment of the South Dakota Board of Technical Education. Greg lives in just outside of Rapid City with his wife of 53 years, and I will tell you, she's a delightful woman. But before I quit talking to you about Greg, I need to tell you that he was a retired lieutenant colonel of the United States Marine Corps, and he led troops in battle with Desert Storm, which liberated the Kuwaiti people, crushed the Iraq military forces in the process. This guy is a great guy, and I would say that we should advise and consent. Join me with an aye. He's the right guy for the job.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is, does the Senate advise and consent to the executive appointment of Gregory Von Wald, Pennington County, Rapid City, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Board of Education Standards? When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 33 yeas, 2 excused.
So that question, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the appointment confirmed.
Consideration of the executive reappointment of Dennis Law of Brookings County, Brookings, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Board of Technical Education.
Question before the Senate is the reappointment of Dennis Law of Brookings County, Brookings, South Dakota, to the Board of Technical Education. Are there any remarks? Senator Shanefish.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dennis Law completed his first term on the South Dakota Board of Technical Education in October of 2025 and was reappointed to a second term beginning in October, running through October 2028 if confirmed. He is a native of Clear Lake, South Dakota. He's a graduate of South Dakota State University and the University of South Dakota. He is the former general manager and CEO of Golden West Telecommunications. He also served as an active member and president of the SDN Communications Board until 2025. He was very involved in the Wall Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Economic Development Corporation. He and his wife, Bonnie, have 2 adult sons. I ask for your favorable consideration and support of his reappointment to the Board of Technical Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is, does the Senate advise and consent to the executive reappointment of Denny Law of Brookings County, Brookings, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Board of Technical Education? When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 33 yeas, 2 excused.
So the question, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the reappointment confirmed. Senator Crabtree.
One more personal privilege, sir.
Granted.
Senators, I'd like you to help me welcome the 8th grade class and the senior class from Oldham Ramona Rutland. Kathleen Trower is with them, as well as Richard Myrovic. Guys, I appreciate you all coming. A couple of you I know real well because I've had the pleasure of coaching you in baseball and have had you around the house a number of times. But thanks for coming out and visiting us in Pierre and seeing your legislature in action. Senators, please welcome them to the building.
Welcome.
Mr. President,
Senator Marty.
today in the gallery we have the Lemon High School senior government class along with their teacher Haley Strait. Would you please welcome them?
Welcome. First reading of House bills.
House Bill 1082, establish parameters for the reimbursement of school districts that provide free or reduced price meals to students. House Bill 1134, make an appropriation for the economic development prosperity in South Dakota. House Bill 1135, make an appropriation to enhance the economic health of South Dakota. House Bill 1140, permit a court to impose as a condition of probation or parole in certain circumstances, treatment at a nonprofit entity, award an alternative care program grant. House Bill 1161, amend provisions related to changing rooms, sleeping quarters, and restrooms. House Bill 1184, define man and woman throughout the state. House Bill 1249, amend provisions pertaining to the School Finance Accountability Board and the process by which a recommendation of the board is approved. House Bill 1257, amend the definition of an abortion. House Bill 1274, prohibit the dispensing, distribution, sale, or advertisement of certain articles or things for purposes of an unlawful abortion, and provide a criminal and civil penalty therefor. House Bill 1279, permit technical college employees to join the state health plan. House Bill 1280, increase penalties for the operation of drones over certain facilities and to provide for mitigation techniques and countermeasures. House Bill 1298, prohibit the electronic publication of certain information about a judicial officer or law enforcement officer and provide a penalty therefor. House Bill 1300, accept victims of human trafficking or domestic abuse from certain clemency notice requirements. House Bill 1302, address issues facing South Dakota. And finally, House Bill 1303, promote the future success and development of South Dakota.
President Pro Tem has made the following committee assignments to the Senate Appropriations Committee, House Bills 1134 and 1135, to Senate Education, House Bills 1082, 1249, and 1279, to Senate Judiciary, House Bills 1140, 1184, 1280, 1298, and 1300, to Senate Local Government, House Bill 1161, to Senate State Affairs, House Bills 1257, 1274, 1302, and 1303. In addition, the following assignments have been made for bills that were read on a previous day. They are House Bill 1160 to Senate Health and Human Services, and referral was waived according to Joint Rule 61 for House Bill 1046. The consent calendar.
Senator Howard requested that House Bill 1219 be removed from the consent calendar. Remaining on consent today, we have House Bill 1007, amend the definition of law enforcement officer to include tribal law enforcement officers. House Bill 1096, allow for the direct creation of a limited liability limited partnership. House Bill 1101, prohibit an insurer from declining or limiting life, disability, or long-term care insurance policies based solely on an individual's status as a living organ donor. House Bill 1119, modify provisions regarding directors serving on a Farm Mutual Insurers Board. And finally, House Bill 1197, revise a provision related to the venue of adoption proceedings. And executive reappointment of Camp Meyer of Pennington County, Rapid City, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Board of Education Standards.
Items on the consent calendar were reported out of committee with no dissenting votes and are not subject to debate. Only questions for clarification purposes are appropriate. There will be one vote taken for all bills on the consent calendar. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, the question before the Senate is, shall the items on the consent calendar pass? As your name is called, those in favor say aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 33 yeas to excused.
So the items on the consent calendar having received a majority vote of the members elect, the bills are declared passed and the appointment confirmed. Are there any questions on the titles? Seeing none, they are deemed correct. We are up to our debate calendar, second reading of House bills.
House Bill 1001, an act to provide for prescribed burning of state-owned land by a person owning adjoining land and to declare an emergency.
House Bill 1001, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Voida.
Mr. President, thank you. Well, folks, it's been a long road getting here for House Bill 1001, and I am very excited to finally get to pitch this on the floor. A couple of years ago, there was a prescribed burn association that had an MOA, a memorandum of agreement, with the GF&P to be able to conduct prescribed burns on state-owned land in conjunction with their land. Well, something happened. The MOA came under scrutiny from some department lawyers and other folks, and it was determined that they didn't feel that that MOA would stand up under the scrutiny of law, so the MOA was then revoked. But we still had a problem. We have what is called the green glacier, or red cedar, that is spreading and taking over a lot of our grasslands, especially in my area along the Missouri River. I had some stats here that one of my constituents shared with me from an SDSU research paper. In 2022 alone, there was 209,671 tons of forage lost due to woody encroachment. That is the equivalent of roughly 279,561 large round bales. So there's a problem. So what was the solution? If we could no longer use the MOA, what was the solution? Well, many different routes were contemplated. A lot of time went into finding a solution to being able to get these folks burning again by DPS, and House Bill 1001 is what we landed on. It creates a narrow exception to the statute to allow land owned by game fish and parks along the Missouri River to be burned in conjunction with the landowner's land. Now, it does it with safeguards. Within the bill, you will see that it requires a written burn request identifying the location and the time frame, and it requires written consent from the secretary in control of that state-owned land, which in this case will almost always be Game Fish and Parks, confirming that the burn is an appropriate land management technique. It also requires the landowner to have reasonable personnel and equipment available and to comply with existing prescribed burn statutes under SDCL 3435-9 and 3435-10. Those statutes just require them to take weather conditions into account and to ensure that they have proper black lines and stuff like that put down. Another important aspect of this bill is that it requires the liability for both the private and the state-owned land burning to remain with the landowner, so the state does not incur liability in this process. HB 1001 is the practical solution to a complicated problem, and I hope that you will support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1001? Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1001. This bill requires a 2/3 majority vote because of the emergency clause. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc. Aye. Carly. Aye. Crabtree. Aye. Davis. Aye. Dibert. Aye. Duhamel. Aye. Foster. Excused. Grove. Aye. Hone. Aye. Howard. Aye. Hulse. Aye. Jensen. Aye. Carr. Aye. Kolbeck. Aye. Lapke. Aye. Larson. Aye. Marty. Aye. Melhoff. Aye. Ms. Skimmons. Aye. Nelson. Aye. Otten. Aye. Perry. Aye. Peterson. Aye. Fischke. Aye. Reed. Aye. Roll. Aye. Sauter. Aye. Shanefish. Aye. Smith. Aye. Billhauer. Aye. Voigt. Aye. Voida. Aye. Whip. Zickman. Aye. Mr. President, we have 33 yeas to excused.
So, House Bill 1001, having received an affirmative vote of a 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, deemed correct.
House Bill 1041, an act to authorize the expansion and renovation of the Sturgis Readiness Center to make an appropriation therefor and to declare an emergency.
House Bill 1041, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator
Mr.
Zickman.
President.
Senator Zickman.
Well, today it's a great honor to do this. It's something, finally, I know what I'm talking about. House Bill 1041 funds the needed expansion and renovation of the Sturgis Readiness Center so the South Dakota National Guard can meet mission demands and respond more quickly during emergencies. The Sturgis Readiness Center is too small and outdated for today's requirements. More soldiers, more equipment, and more training demands than the facility was built to support. It expands and updates the current facility, the most cost-effective option. The new usable space now is 26,270 square feet. And I've been up there, and they really need this facility. The cost is $10.7 million. $8 million of that is coming from federal funds, and then 2.35 is actually coming, and that really does, because they've figured out to the total amount of about 2.7, because the 335K design is already done. This supports real-world response in South Dakota to winter storms, wildfires, floods, and of course, the Sturgis Rally Security Support. We are asking you for a vote on House Bill 1041. It's a practical readiness upgrade that keeps the Guard strong, responsive, and ready in Sturgis, South Dakota. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1041? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1041. Because of the appropriation and the emergency clause, this bill requires a 2/3 majority vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman. Mr. President, we have 33 yeas, 2 excused.
So House Bill 1041, having received an affirmative vote of a 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct. Senator Hone.
Personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you. Well, I would like to introduce the 14 students from West Central. I think they're both on the left and the right side of the chamber. If you guys would please stand. They're from Hartford and Humboldt, which is districts 9 and the good senator in front of me, 25 district. Their chaperones today are Travis and Mary Lou Nagel, Jason Rops, who is the social science teacher, and Joanne Bull. She teaches civics, world geography, Native American studies, and AP microeconomics. And Mrs. Bull taught my children, Noah and Camille. Please help me greet them warmly with a round of applause. Thank you.
Welcome.
House Bill 1056, an act to require that the Department of Social Services submit a federal waiver request to exclude soft drinks from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program.
House Bill 1056, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, HB 1056 is a public health bill. This bill represents a thoughtful first step in aligning our SNAP program, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, with the same nutrition standards that are already applied to programs like WIC, the Women, Infants, and Children's Program. And this program, the WIC program, we know the way that program is set up, we know it improves the diet quality and long-term health outcomes of the participants. SNAP is our largest nutrition assistance program in the country. It supports working families, seniors, folks with disability, and children. And many of these folks are facing financial hardships. And we absolutely want to make sure that these families have access to food and get the nutrition that they need. We also need to acknowledge what the data shows. SNAP participants experience higher rates of diabetes, high blood pressure, and other diet-related illnesses. These conditions are often preventable, yet they also reduce the quality of life, and they drive up Medicaid and other healthcare associated costs that taxpayers ultimately share. Sugary beverages remain the single largest source of added sugar in the American diet. And research shows that these beverages contribute to about 9% of SNAP purchases. This amounts to billions of taxpayer dollars each year. At the same time, nearly 80% of SNAP participants are also on Medicaid or CHIP programs. And that means when poor diet contributes to preventable disease, the public is paying on both ends. First in food assistance, and again in healthcare costs. This bill is not about judgment. It is not about restricting food access or telling families what they can or cannot eat with their own money. It's about responsible stewardship of our taxpayer dollars and our taxpayer-funded nutrition programs. If we call it a nutrition program, it should be focused on nutrition. HB 1056 is a practical, reasonable, evidence-based step to reduce preventable disease, encourage healthier choices, and better align our public dollars with better health outcomes. I respectfully ask for your favorable consideration and stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1056? Senator Miskimins.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a day of finallys. This is finally a bill that being a dentist actually applies to. So it's often said that an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. Change is hard, and the opponents of this bill stress the increased costs and the difficulty of implementing this bill. I think it's all perspective, or a glass half empty perspective. The estimated cost of $320,000 the first year is but 0.6% of the Medicaid dental cost of $51 million for dental care. That $51 million is but 2.5% of the budget for Medicaid health care costs. Let me share a couple stories that happened to me and to my patients when I was practicing. The first is about nursing bottle caries. A young mother on Medicaid brought her 2-year-old twins to us. They had 32 cavities and 7 abscesses. And I don't know if that first visit was more traumatic on the boys or on my dental staff and myself. After that day, we referred them for further care to the specialist because it was going to be too traumatic in their lives. The second one is of a young man that was 16 years old. He was also a Medicaid recipient, but that young man drank 8 to 10 Mountain Dews a day. When I met him, all of his front teeth were rotted off at the gum line. One of the hardest things I ever did was to do a denture for a young person 16 years of age. So this is the impact of soda on young people in society. I would rather, though, share the perspective of glass half full, even if it's full of soda. These funds are a great investment for lower medical costs and better long-term health care for young people in our state. The choices we make truly do make us. Please vote yes on 1056. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1056? Senator Otten.
Well, if you check the voting record, I'm the one that said no, and I was pulled my my little book that I keep a lot of numbers in, and following, of course, an appropriator, he already beat me to them. When we took the vote, when we did, and as we're working through all of our budgets, I've become aware of certain things. And actually, when we start looking at that 322, and there are some other factors involved, but I wanted you guys to know that there's something called a little, well, I don't know if we really want to let this out of the cat out of the bag, but there's something called a motion sheet. And they can be built inside of the budget quite readily. And I won't tell you where I'm alluding to, but the thing that you have to, and the reason I voted against it was just merely financial. But I also remember going to grocery stores, and of course, if you check with my doctor, he will classify me as obese. Don't know how that happened, but anyway, it did. But I've seen other individuals with their shopping carts totally full. Don't know what the kids' names are, but it doesn't really matter, and you can see that they're not in the best of shape. And so you have to finally ask yourself the crucial question: is there actually a savings in other spots that can offset this? And why there is no real hard data that would indicate that it can, logic would then say that it will. And so I wanted to bring those things up before you if you looked at the vote count. And I normally do not change votes. You know, when I say no, it's no, and when I say yes, it's yes. But on this occasion, when I started going back through numbers, I think we can write this principal cost long-term, and it won't be that long-term. We should start to see benefits of it in a few years. Now, the thing I don't like about the entire program, it's principally a waiver program that's done by the edict of a president. Presidents change. Are we going to be holding the bag on this thing? Maybe. But I also go back to, oh geez, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago. I went to Washington, D.C. to testify against smoking. I was a non-smoker, and actually I was testifying to allow smoking to continue because as a businessman, I couldn't afford to put in the air ducting that they want. And we made decisions as a nation, slowly but surely. We gave up cigarettes. I think it's one of the best things we ever did. If I was in the legislature at that point in time, I don't know if I'd have went along with it, just because don't tell me what to do. But I can tell you that you go into any restaurant and you know that it's the best thing that we ever did. So what I'm asking everybody is actually let's take a leap of faith that we actually can use logic on this thing, and that we can actually maybe help some folks into the future. Maybe the little guy that had his teeth rotted out of his head, that we can stop that. Maybe a mother, instead of putting a Coke in the child's bottle to nurse on, maybe she can actually put milk in there. So I'd ask everybody to go ahead and vote for this.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1056, Senator Perry.
Thank you. I think the remarks from the Clay Union, Gerald, Davidson, Sanborn, and just now from Lincoln and the city of T, I'll tell you what, right now with the SNAP program, South Dakota wasn't first, but we certainly don't want to be the last person that does this. We want to take care of our youth. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be doing the right thing. And sometimes things that are right take a little bit of money, but this is one time where I think we should all band together and make sure that we say no to soda and yes to SNAP and protect our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Blanc.
Quick practical question for the prime, please.
State your question.
Thank you, sir. In section 1, line 14, it says, for the purposes of this section, soft drink means a non-alcoholic beverage that contains natural or artificial sweeteners. The term does not include, and you skip down to line 3, and it says juices that have been approved by the Department of Health for eligibility in supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children. Can you just give a couple of examples? Well, give as many examples as you can of what kind of juices this would not apply to.
Senator Davis, do you wish to respond to that question?
I think the easiest answer for that, Senator, is to go to the DSS website and look up the Women, Infants, and Children's Program. You will be able to see the list of eligible items there. It is a narrow list of eligible items. Natural fruit juices are on there, milk products, things of that nature. It is a narrow list, and it's meant to be that way because the Women, Infants, and Children's Program is designed to provide better nutrition. And so I'm sorry that I'm not going to give you very specific answers here, but it's easier sometimes to look at a list of inclusive items and instead of trying to go down a long list of excluded items.
Further remarks, Senator Blanc.
Yeah, just real quick. Does that include orange juice?
Senator Davis, do you wish to respond?
To my knowledge, yes.
Orange juice is excluded, to clarify, Mr. President?
You could still buy orange juice, I think is what you're saying.
Senator, I believe natural fruit juice, orange juice would be included.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1056. Senator Grove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a quick comment and then I have a question. So I come from an area where we just got a grocery store. I live in a very poor community and the main mode of transportation is foot. Prior to having a grocery store, we had the C-store, which is a convenience store. And many of these, I mean, you could get milk and probably small boxes of evaporated powdered milk, but I don't know about some of the others. Sunny D would have been one of the big things that you could have gotten, which is on the cannot do list. The nearest grocery stores were a half an hour one way and a half an hour another way. And so I am concerned about what we're doing. I understand the emotional pull for all of this. I get it. It's definitely a feel-good vote. My issue is that we're banning these drinks, but the fact of the matter is we're not banning candy, snacks, ice cream, cakes. It's listed on here as if it's kind of all-inclusive, but it's not. So it gives this look as if there's going to be this big, huge change in the way that people buy products, but it's really not going to be. You're just saying that they can't buy soda, which, just to be very clear, I see the same children with no teeth, and I understand what you're talking about, and I 100% agree with the good senator from Davison and many other counties. I totally agree with your assessment. My concern is what do we do when those small mom and pops get their 6,000 products per year that they will have to, because this is a federal law. So if we as a state decide that we're going to do something different, the feds are not going to assist. So all these UPC codes and all that are going to come in, these mom and pops are going to have to enter in each one of these. And you say, well, why do I care? Because what's going to happen is the mom and pop, that's a half an hour that way and a half an hour that way, are going to say, you know what, this is far more work than I want to do, and then they're going to stop offering EBT. And I don't think that I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm just trying to be realistic for where I am at. So another part of this, what we have to do besides $300,000 more a year, is that we also have to be able to substantiate to the feds, because we're coming against a federal program, we have to show them that we are in fact impacting people's buying habits. And I'm just wondering, how are we going to do that when these people, like, they can still buy little cookies and donuts and snacky snacks that are absolutely full of sugar? So I don't know. Like, I guess what I would love to ask an appropriator, somebody that knows some money facts, and not an emotional thing, but like actual money. What does this look like financially, if these communities that are very small communities, their grocery stores stop doing EBT, so we've lost that. And then what happens when we can't meet the requirements of the waiver because we're literally not really, we've just banned one thing, and their buying habits haven't changed. So, like, what does that look like? And maybe the Prime can answer. Are there penalties or fees, or what happens to us if we don't meet the base requirements of the waiver?
Are you posing that question to the
I guess I'll just ask the Prime, because maybe she knows those numbers. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Senator Davis, do you wish to respond to that question?
I guess I'm going to do my best here because I'm not quite sure what other numbers you're looking for outside of the fiscal note that we did already. You know, retailer, there's no I think it's important to note that there's going to be no reduction in EBT benefits. Retailers that use the WIC guidelines already get a list of eligible products from the Department of Social Services. That same list could be entered into a retailer's point of sale system as an excluded item from SNAP benefits. Now, if retailers want to make decisions, that's up to them. That's on their business. But as you stated, there's nothing stopping a retailer from still accepting EBT because, as you mentioned, there are other items that can still be purchased with that, many other items. This bill is narrowly tailored to just beverages as an easy first step. When we want to talk about other numbers, I think it's important to talk about the $51 million we spend every year on Medicaid dental, just dental, $51 million. Yes, this fiscal note is talking around somewhere around 360, roughly. How many cavities do you think that is? How easy it'll be to make that back when we spend $51 million just on Medicaid dental work? I think the good dentist said it best. Ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. Thank you.
Further remarks, Senator Grove?
Yes, Mr. President. I guess what I would take away from that is that so we're actually going to, it's actually going to be 51 million, I guess, plus the 300 and some thousand, because we're not changing people's habits. We're taking away soda from this place, but they're still going to get tons of sugary products because that's not included in this. And for that matter, when you're talking about just do this like WIC, this is not WIC. This is not WIC. And I know that we keep saying that, but this is not WIC. And I love WIC, actually, and I love where WIC came from. I love his history. But that's not what this is. And so people are still going to be buying all these sugary things. In fact, one of the small grocery store owners that I talked to, this is what he said. I'm concerned about the narrowness of this policy. We are singling out soda, but let's be honest with each other. Walk down any convenience aisle, there are products with more sugar, more caffeine, more additives, and less nutritional value than a can of soda. So all of these things are still going to be purchased. And I just want that to be clear. We are just narrowing down one thing, which, by the way, they're just going to go buy somewhere else, and that's their problem, and it can be on their dime, and I'm okay with that. I just don't, this is not actually going to do what we're saying. I just think that should be known, so, thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1056? Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, as my role with Streamline Sales Tax, we talked quite a bit about the databases and the products. And I think this is getting a little blown out of proportion what it takes to manage this. I mean, you have a point of sale system. Every time you have a product, you have to put that in. And there's databases that can help you load all this information because of UPC codes. A lot of times you just go up, here's my new product, hit it with a UPC code, you got all the information, and then maybe there's a toggle you got to turn on and off. And so I get a little worried about this whole idea, or I guess I want to push back on this whole idea that stores just aren't going to do this anymore. There's so much that you're giving up if you're not doing it anymore. And so you have to realize these point of sale systems are very easy to use. Everybody's got an inventory control process that they have to do and manage this on their point of sale system. And so let's not fall into that trap that this is just going to be so difficult to do.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1056? Further remarks? Senator Davis in closing.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, food insecurity and SNAP reform are big topics. And this is just one step in the right direction. And I want to put this back, frame this conversation back on the taxpayer. And that this is a taxpayer-funded program. It has the word nutrition in it. We should start aligning the program with nutritional items. I think it's also important to recognize that we have a lot of nutritional programs, most of them federally regulated as well, and many of them don't allow POP. WIC doesn't allow POP, the school lunch program doesn't allow POP, commodity supplemental food program doesn't allow POP, emergency food assistance program excludes POP, and military nutrition also excludes POP. SNAP is the outlier. This is, again, one small step we can do so that taxpayers aren't footing the bill on preventable diet-related disease on both ends. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1056. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman, Grove. Mr. President, we have 27 yeas, 6 nays, 2 excused.
So House Bill 1056, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
House Bill 1104, an act to revise the application requirements for special license plates and parking permits for individuals with disabilities.
House Bill 1104, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Melhoff.
I'd like to call the question on House Bill 1104.
That has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. The question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1104. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused. Blanc. Carly. Crabtree. Davis. Dybert. Duhamel. Foster, excused. Grove. Hone. Howard. Hulse. Jensen. Did he say aye? Aye. Carr. Colbeck. Lapke. Larson. Marty. Melhoff. Miss Gimmons. Nelson. Otten. Perry. Peterson. Fischke. Reed. Roll. Sauter. Shanefish. Smith. Vilhauer. Voigt. Voida. Whip. Zickman. Mr. President, we have 33 yeas, 2 excused.
So House Bill 1104, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
House Bill 1130, an act to amend permissible use of a school district's capital outlay fund.
House Bill 1130, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Shanefish.
Thank you, Mr. President. HB 1130 will allow schools to use the capital outlay fund for property insurance premiums. I do want to clarify property insurance is the only change proposed. The rest of the changes in the bill are style and form. Land, buildings, equipment, certain transportation costs, software, and warranties are current permissible uses of the capital outlay fund. Like many costs, property insurance is going up 220% at one school district, for example. We simply need to protect and have good insurance on our assets. Over the years, there has been damage from flooding, tornadoes, and other weather-related events. I'll give a little background on the Blue Ribbon Task Force and some of the changes made then regarding capital outlay. Prior to 2016, the amount that could be transferred from capital outlay to the general fund for any use went from 15% to 45%, so there was some intent from the formula changes to allow more flexibility. Also, at the same time, there were changes made that limited schools on how much they could levy for capital outlay based on the number of students. That was a big change and one that requires fiscal responsibility from our administrators and school board members. I would also suggest from an accounting and transparency standpoint that spelling out a use like this in law is better than making transfers when possible. There are many school districts that do not do capital outlay transfers to the general fund. A school district from District 19 that testified in committee does not have an opt-out and does not want to do one. HB 1130 truly has potential to save money for those who pay property taxes and prevent or reduce opt-outs. 1130 had strong support from the Education Committee after hearing testimony on the direct impact this would have. I would ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1130? Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1130. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused. Blanc. Carly. Crabtree. Davis. Dybert. Duhamel. Foster, excused. Grove. No. Grove votes no. Hone. Howard. Hulse. Jensen. Carr. Kolbeck? Lapke? Larson? Marty? Melhoff? Miss Gimmons? Nelson? Otten? Perry? Peterson? Fischke? Reed? Roll? Sauter? Shanefish? Smith? Vilhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whip? Sickman? Fischke? Mr. President, we have 24 yeas, 9 nays, 2 excused.
So, House Bill 1130, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
House Bill 1143, an act to authorize the possession and self-administration of diabetes medications by a student on school property and at school-related events and activities.
House Bill 1143, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Melhoff.
I'd like to call the question on House Bill 1143.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. The question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1143. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Fischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman, Carley. Mr. President, we have 33 yeas, 2 excused.
So House Bill 1143, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
House Bill 1146, an act to adopt the Physician Assistant Licensure Compact.
House Bill 1146, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Melhoff.
I'd like to call the question.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. The question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1146. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Fischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Billhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman. Mr. President, we have 32 yeas, 1 nay, 2 excused.
So, House Bill 1146, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it is deemed correct.
House Bill 1188, an act to limit the liability of law enforcement officers and others when removing a disabled vehicle from a highway, a right-of-way, or public waters.
House Bill 1188, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Melhoff.
Mr. President, I'd like to call the question.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. The question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1188. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman, Blanc. Mr. President, we have 30 yeas, 3 nays, 2 excused.
So, House Bill 1188, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
House Bill 1233, an act to modify provisions for a tax collection agreement with an Indian tribe.
House Bill 1233, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Melhoff.
I'd like to call the question.
That has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. The question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1233. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 32 yeas, 1 nay, 2 excused.
So, House Bill 1233, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it is deemed correct.
Senate Bill 1260, an act to authorize the establishment of municipal property tax rebate programs.
House Bill 1260, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Melhoff.
I'd like to call the question on 1260.
That has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. The question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1260. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Skimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Carly votes no. Mr. President, we have 31 yeas, 2 nays, 2 excused.
So House Bill 1260, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct. And there being no objection, the Senate will revert to order of business number 5, reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Joint Committee on Appropriations reports that it has had the following under consideration and returns with the following recommendations. Senate Bill 231 do pass. Senate Bill 213 was tabled. Submitted Ernie Otten, Mike Derby, co-chairs.
We are up to the signing of bills. The Constitution requires that bills be signed in open session by the President and have their titles read. I think there are 5 today. At this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 31, an act to permit the use of a confirmation letter to verify a voter's registration. Now the President is signing Senate Bill 30, an act to amend the reasons for challenging an individual's eligibility to vote. Now the President is signing Senate Bill 25, an act to update provisions related to the permit application process for proposed energy and transmission facilities. Last one, the President is signing House Bill 1189, an act to establish a greater tire weight limit for a mobile crane moving on any highway in the state. All right, announcements. Senator Lapke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joint appropriations will meet beginning at 8:30 in the morning, and we'll have a huddle at 8 o'clock previous to that. And just a simple reminder, there's a pool tournament at the Long Branch at 7 p.m. tonight.
And I see our pool organizers just in time stepped into the back of the room, Representative Derby. Further announcements. Senator Shanefish.
Thank you, Mr. President. There will be no Senate education tomorrow, so enjoy the pool tournament.
Senator Pischke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, there will be Senate Ag and Natural Resources Committee at 10 o'clock tomorrow. But I do appreciate there being no Senate Ed because the room will be a bit cooler. So that's a good thing. But make sure you do show up for Senate Ag at 10 o'clock.
Very good.
Is the one that puts it together. You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? Senator Kolbeck.
Yep, Senate Judiciary tomorrow at 8:15. Senator Hulse will be running.
All right. Anybody else? All right.
All right, Senator Peterson moves that the Senate do now adjourn.
It has been moved that we adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.